biggest discovery we've had in SEO ever. So much opportunity is coming as a result of this. You really have to have two strategies so that you make sure they're getting what they want from your pages. But Google has a variety of metrics that they use to determine if a user had a good experience. You don't need a ton of words to rank. A model that Google kind of stopped using 13 years ago.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Want to attract and convert more leads? Want to learn how digital PR, branding, and SEO can establish and build your brand identity? Welcome to the Market Movers Building Brands and Links with Linkify podcast. We answer these questions and help you ramp up your brand visibility and credibility. Let's cut through the noise and make your business the talk of the town. We're your hosts, Nick and Chris. Let's get this show on the road.
Welcome to the Market Movers podcast. Today we're joined by Michael King, founder and CEO at iPullRank, a leading digital marketing agency. Michael has helped top brands like MGM Resorts, American Express, and Adidas drive billions in incremental revenue through innovative SEO and AI strategies. Really looking forward to this chat. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Thank you for having me. Please stop calling me Michael, though, because I feel like I'm in trouble.
Like your mom saying your name. What's your middle name? We'll call you by your full name for the rest of the episode.
Nope. But I'll tell you, my middle initial is R because my dad wanted me to be referred to as Mr. King.
Nice.
Yeah.
My middle name's Michael, actually. It's a solid name.
All right, Mike, thanks for coming on. To kick things off, I wanted to ask about SEO Week. SEO Week in New York City is about a little over 2 months out. There's some really big names on the speaker list. I'm curious what your thoughts are about what major themes will come out of that. What will people be talking about at that event?
Yeah, the overarching theme is that we're moving into the next chapter of search. I think the reality of generative AI is just upending everything. And I'm not saying that, Google's going to go away or anything like that, but everything is changing far more dramatically in the last 2 years than it did for like the preceding 10. So that's going to be the broad theme. And so then we're going to have theme days. Like it might be a technical day and a content day, a data and AI day, and so on. But we're firming that up as these topics come in from the actual speakers. But broadly, everyone is talking about like, what do we actually do now with so much stuff changing?
Okay, so do you think it's going to be like a positive vibe, or are people not happy? Are people optimistic? What's the general consensus?
It's a positive vibe. And, I think the reality is that so much opportunity is coming as a result of this. And I hate to devolve into the spammy aspects of this, but there are things that generative AI search engines or whatever you want to call them, chatbots, QA systems, haven't figured out that Google figured out a long time ago. So like you can cloak for ChatGPT if you want. Not that I'm saying anyone should do it, but it's going to reset the whole cat and mouse game again. And there's going to be a lot of opportunities that people find. There's also going to be even bigger opportunities for people that like figure out the things that are going to work long term. And I think there's going to be a big shift in our space where people start to recognize search as a branding channel, not just a performance channel. So yeah, I think it's going to be largely optimistic, but for people that don't want to change or have difficulty, I think a lot of those people are going to exit. Just like when, Panda and Penguin rolled out and a whole bunch of people just stopped doing SEO because they're like, I can't hang with this new thing. So I think it's a good thing, actually. It's ultimately just going to yield a better experience for the users.
So you've mentioned that there are some like gray hat, black hat things that people could be doing. Do you think people are doing that right now? Is that already a strategy you're seeing?
So first, I reject the idea of gray hat or black hat in this case because, there's no guidelines. Like ChatGPT doesn't say you can't do these things. Google's guidelines are just like for their website. They try to make it this nefarious thing. It's not. It's just people doing things to their own websites. So do I think people are probably doing this stuff now? Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think that there's a whole community of people that didn't come from SEO that are engineers or kind of hacker types that have always looked for the edges in things, right? Like, even if you think about, the iPhone and like jailbreaking it, like there's a whole culture and community of like, how do I make this do what I want? So I completely expect that people are figuring this stuff out, especially if they already know about some of the things that we used to do in the SEO space. And when I say we, I don't mean me.
So have you seen anything in the wild yet then?
I'm just like, it just makes sense for people to already have figured this out.
And you mentioned that you think it's not just a search first, but a brand as well. And you think that's an important aspect of what's being put forward in the AI results from the LLMs?
Well, what I mean by that is that, typically when people think about digital marketing, they think brand versus performance, right? And so they think of channels like YouTube as a brand channel, not necessarily a performance channel, whereas search is like primarily considered a performance channel. But the reality is that the click-through rate models never add up to 100%, meaning users come to a SERP and they leave. In some cases, it's because they got their information and that's it. Like they didn't need to click on anything. And that's still good for your brand if you show up in a feature snippet or an AI overview. So that's always been discounted in our space, whereas like all the other channels, it's like, oh, well, if people saw it, that is valuable. In our space, that's always just been like negated. And so being that ChatGPT doesn't drive a ton of referral traffic, but we recognize that it has, 3 billion users on a monthly basis. People are going to recognize like this is a form of search and it's a brand awareness channel. Now, to your point, yes, brand is really important because, being a brand means that you are pervasive on the web, right? Like your message is in a lot of places. Your brand is being said. And these large language models are effectively giant statistical models that are saying, well, what are the relationship between these words? So if your brand is being said a bunch of times, your brand relationships will be represented in these language models. And so there's going to be more opportunities for you to be shown as these results. So I think people are going to recognize like, yes, we got to do more digital PR. We got to get more mentions. We got to do those sorts of things so that when the training data is updated, you are seen more. So you have more opportunity to be shown in these results.
Is there a strategy that you know of or you're thinking is going to play out to show up in these AI suggestions, AI search results? I've seen some studies saying, some smaller studies saying that like up to 70% of the results are the same. If you rank in the top 10 in Google, your Perplexity is showing you, your ChatGPT is recommending you. But I imagine a lot of those companies to get in the top 10, they are doing a lot of branding efforts, right? They're doing a lot of PR, they're a lot of social. How are you thinking about that as far as strategy to show up in that?
Yeah, so there's multiple ways that these systems work. So there's the pre-trained data where they crawl the web or they ingest as much content as they can, and then they build the core language model based on that. So getting into the answers from that is really about just getting your brand everywhere so you're seen across the web in the training data. And then there's another version where they're able to leverage real-time information, which is called retrieval augmented generation. So that's when you combine the search engine with the language model. So that can always be like, things that are published right now. There's a lot of nuances in here because when we're talking about Google, they're using the index. When you're talking about ChatGPT, they're using a variety of sources, but largely Bing's index. And the main difference between how ChatGPT does it and how Google is doing it is that ChatGPT is not caching anything. So they're going out to these pages in real time, collecting them, and then giving responses. So you really have to have two strategies. One is just like the broad strategy of being everywhere. And then the other strategy is about being optimized for the queries related to the prompt. And, when it comes down to that, the way that RAG works is it takes all the pages and then it breaks it down into passages and then it vectorizes those passages. So then whatever your prompt is, you look for the most relevant passage or passages to the prompt, and then it returns those, and then it feeds that to the language model. So one of the things that they're looking for is consensus of information, but they're also looking for, the opposite as well, like what is not being said regularly, so it can be used as like an additional response and things like that. So it really goes back to a lot of things that we do for SEO when we're optimizing pages. We're identifying like what components of the page are most relevant to the query and then making it even more relevant. So yeah, it's got to be a two-pronged approach because a lot of these systems do a combination of those things to give you a result.
It sounds like it's definitely not business as usual then. So a lot of people might be giving up. You played a big part in the Google leak, which happened last year. I can't believe how much shit's changed since then. We speak to a lot of people in sort of like local SEO that say it is business as usual. They're just making their sort of, keeping their business page profile correct and up to date, reviews, a bit of content, that sort of thing. When is this going to truly hit us, do you think? I mean, it's already hitting a lot of keywords and the SERPs and people searching differently, but do you think we've still got a few more years of this sort of people getting used to it, or are we in the thralls of a major change?
No, I think we're already in it. Like, so many people getting hit by, helpful content updates, core updates. Like, this is largely a function of Google turning up the dial on their measurements of user interactions. So if you look at all these different patents and things, you look at, of course, the leaked documents that we talked about. You also look at the Google exploit that Mark Williams Cook had uncovered, last year as well, but didn't talk about it as much. I personally think that is the biggest discovery we've had in SEO ever. But anyway, all of those resources will tell you that Google is using user interactions as a primary measure to determine session success. Also, with the advent of generative AI, they cannot reliably detect generative AI as a signal in isolation. What I mean by that is you can't say is this or is this not generative AI and demote content just because of that. What they can do is use all these other signals that they've built over the last 20 years or 25 years or whatever it is, and in context with a signal like that to then demote content. So a lot of those other signals are built on user interactions, right? Like, they have a site quality score, which Mark has actually shared with the community, which is, some great data. And that site quality score is largely built on the idea of, do people click on this site and stay there? So Google is really having to use those signals in a variety of ways. And I think these thresholds for what is bad have been lowered because they're effectively under attack on two fronts from ChatGPT. It's one, a product that a lot of people are considering to be better, and two, this flood of generative AI content that's created to basically make search quality worse. So Google is having to do some things to, say hey, this content is not good enough based on how users are interacting with it.
It's interesting. So where does that leave people then? What do you take away from that? If you're trying to figure out your marketing strategy, everyone's using AI content. How do you approach that?
It really comes down to user experience. Obviously, your content generally has to be good, but you have to generate a user experience that is going to keep people on your pages. SEO and user experience have always overlapped, but they always have sat in different corners. I think they need to come closer together. So you got to think about making it easy for users to get precisely to the answers that they're looking for, rather than being here's a story about my grandmother's life before you give me the apple pie recipe. Nobody ever wanted that, right? And so Google is also trying to drop you directly onto the answer. You'll notice a lot of times, you click a result and it takes you to an area that it highlights because they have a better understanding of those passages within the content, which again goes back to the whole retrieval augmented generation idea. So the more you get users to what they want, the higher likelihood that your result is going to send back signals that they had a good session. And it's not just okay, did they leave Google, or did they go back to Google from your site? It's also, did they go to another result, or did they perform an additional search that was really similar to that first search? So I think we need to get better at understanding the whole click stream. So using data from companies SimilarWeb, or SEMrush has Dot Trends, and there's a company called Datos. All these companies that will tell you here's what someone clicked after they clicked your result. Here's what they searched after they searched this result, and see how your pages are performing in that lens, and continuing to improve the user experience so that you make sure they're getting what they want from your pages.
Okay, that's super interesting. So when it comes to the actual content production, let's say for non-specifically competitive keyword that could potentially be considered evergreen content, what can they do outside of the content in order to tell Google that people on that page are interacting with the content, they're enjoying the content, they want to be there? What other user signals should people be looking to optimize?
So I want to be really clear when I say these metrics, because people start to assume oh, Google's using bounce rate. No, Google is not using bounce rate. Google has their own measures between like when a user leaves the SERP, goes to your page, comes back. Typically that's called dwell time. There's also pogo sticking, whatever. But Google has a variety of metrics that they use to determine if a user had a good experience. Some of it is the proxies you would use would be bounce rate, time on site, page depth, things like that. But again, those are not the metrics that Google is specifically using. So again, it goes back to, are users staying on this page long enough, and are they interacting with the page, and so on. And then Cindy Crum, she outlined this whole theory of how Google could also be using data from Chrome as well. And we've got a lot of evidence that they are using something from Chrome. We don't necessarily know what, but it could be, precisely how are they interacting within this page that could be sent back. And also, I think, one of the remedies that has been suggested by the DOJ in this antitrust trial is that Google has to divest from Chrome. And Google basically responded like anything but that. So that kind of tells you like how important it is for them to have that system where they can collect a ton of data and so on about users.
Okay, so it sounds like maybe the best approach, look at tools like SimilarWeb, see what people are doing once they leave there. You're trying to address that. You either want them to go to another page on your site, if it's sort of like a continuing the education process, or if it's a case of them not finding the answer, you want to be adding that to your page. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, just thinking about an actual user, like I think historically we've been like, 5,000 words or whatever the word count is for SEO. Here's the thing, that was never actually true. That was one of those like correlation but not causation situations, because Google has always done this thing, and it's based on a paper that Amit Singhal had written prior to being at Google. So he was like the first SVP of search. Like he rewrote Google after Larry and Sergey did, when he was like, okay, this is cute, but like this isn't real. Like he's like a real OG information retrieval guy. And he wrote this paper called Pivoted Document Normalization, or Document Length Normalization. And the whole concept is basically like, if you have a page that's like 2,000 words and you put it up against a page that's like 200 words, the 2,000 word page would always perform better because the words are there more. And so what they do is they basically like fold down or kind of like compress the bigger document to be comparable to the shorter document so that they can still rank equally if it makes sense to do so. So that's been baked into Google since like 2003. And despite that, in SEO, we've always been like, yeah, the 5,000 word blog post is the one that's going to win. I mean, it can, but not just because it's longer. So what I'm saying here is get to the point for people, right? Like if you Google, is it Christmas? The thing that ranks number one literally only has one word on it, and it says no. Then you go to like the third result, you see something that's more like an SEO, page. It's probably like a couple thousand words explaining, the concept as to why it's not Christmas or whatever. You don't need a ton of words to rank. You just need to be the best result. So focus on that.
That's isitchristmasyet.com, right?
I think so.
Yeah, I think we go to that every year. And I live in Portugal now, so now it's in Portuguese. Now.
Nice.
Yeah. So, okay. Moving on then. You said, I saw recently on a social post that marketing to bots may become a strategic focus. Can you explain what you meant by that?
Yeah, so in this world where we're going towards like agents, like these things, these basically chat bots that kind of represent you and can make decisions and things like that, I see a world where there's like an algorithm that represents every single person. And so on the other side, as a marketer, I see us going more towards like an algorithmic marketing. So like, how do you use what you're doing to effectively market to these bots? And, we've always said, or Google has always said, like, don't chase the algorithm, don't worry about the bots, focus on people. But if people are going to be abstracted, how do we market to the bots that represent people? And in the short term, because agents aren't like fully developed, like people are still unclear as to what that means and so on. But in the meantime, you have these intermediate systems like ChatGPT, like the AI overviews, like Perplexity, that are again representing the needs of a user. So how do we we think about accounting for that? Because before, again, it was always like, just think about users and not the bots. But right now, the bot is now the intermediary. So how do we account for that, basically?
So you predict that at some point in the future, we're going to have these like algorithmic AI bot avatars as like extensions of ourselves, and that marketing will just be done bot to bot.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be like the movie Her, right? Like where, you know, the bot like read all his emails and learned about him and figured out his attitudes, interests, and opinions, and then was like tailored to him. I think that's very realistic with the technology that we have. And everybody will just be like, cool, here's your agent, connect your Facebook, connect your Twitter, connect your email. Cool, I've learned everything about you, and now I represent you, and I can take actions for you, right? Like, oh, I know your mom's birthday's coming up. I know this is your relationship. I know these new items are on the market. These would be good fits. Cool, I automatically sent that to you. So if there's no point for where marketing like enters the picture, how do we account for that? That's my question.
It's hyper efficiency then, isn't it? I suppose a future of hyper efficiency. That's scary. Yeah. I'm thinking of, did you see his Dark Materials? You know, and every person's got like a little demon. It's like a little extension of himself. That's like a little animal that goes around with them. So it's fascinating.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly what our future looks like. I watch a lot of sci-fi, so.
Oh, man. Okay, so before, we're not quite there yet, obviously, thank God. Or maybe not. It sounds like it could be good. I always forget my mom's birthday present, so that sounds fantastic. Okay, so currently we are in an era of AI-generated search overviews in Google. People, I guess, still don't fully know how to handle it. What are you seeing on best ways to optimize in order to appear in those AI overviews? And are people getting like referral traffic from the overviews if they appear in them?
So there's no way to truly know because we don't get that data in GSE. And I do see that there is some softening for clients that have like a lot of informational queries that are triggering AI overviews. But again, it's difficult to definitively say that's because the AI overviews without the data. The best we can do really is have like a before and after where you're like, you know, here's how things worked prior to the AI overviews. And then we verify that these queries are triggering AI overviews and then seeing like what the delta is in the traffic. But even that is not necessarily accurate because, you know, new SERP features, shifts in rankings and so on, all of that could potentially impact there. But as far as getting the AI overviews, it really goes back to what I said, like optimizing those passages. There's a whole study, you know, or a white paper that some computer scientists put together where they tried like a variety of different tactics, including OG SEO things like keyword stuffing. They saw that didn't really work. They saw that, you know, being more authoritative with your language, citing sources, even if they're not real, and adding statistics, even if they were not real, ultimately yielded better performance in these. So again, it goes back to identifying like what's the paragraph or the sentence or whatever that is most relevant on your page and then just improving it in those ways. And the other thing is when you go to the SERP itself, if you click on any of those citations, it takes you to the block of copy that Google used to feed the large language model. So you can then compare against what you have on your page and say more of what those are saying or say something better that's more compelling, and then you end up getting in those slots.
Do you think that's even a good focus? I mean, I think it's changing so quickly and what AI recommends actually even from person to person could be different. Do you think trying to show up in those AI overviews is a good marketing focus?
Well, I think it is, again, from more of a branding perspective because we don't know what the referral traffic could be. And so what I typically tell clients is the first thing to do is to look to see which of your keywords that you care about have AI overviews. And then think about, well, what are other keywords we might want to target instead that are not triggering AI overviews? And if that's not an option, then you should be optimizing for the AI overviews that you don't have. But it's really being more strategic and rebalancing your keywords because at the end of the day, you probably care more about driving the traffic than you do about the branding, at least right now.
And would you say that there is we know that it's Bing's index that OpenAI's ChatGPT relies on. So is there a consideration for optimizing for Bing alongside Google, or is that not really a strategy which can be done?
What's Bing? Never heard of that. Yeah, definitely. You definitely want to, optimize for Bing. You definitely want to start using Bing Webmaster Tools if you haven't. They've been adding a lot of features to support this sort of stuff. And in fact, we've got somebody from the Bing team that's like, actual AI, like researcher sort of guy that's going to be speaking at SEO Week. So I told him, I was like, I don't want a Bing product demo. I want you to tell us about the technology here. And so it's my hopes that we're going to get, some of that in this discussion.
His opening slide will be Bing product demo. All right. So I know you focus a lot on technical SEO. Are there any SEO tools or processes that you're relying on heavily for technical SEO?
Man, here's my problem. Like, there's a lot of great tools out there, but most of them are built on a model that Google kind of stopped using 13 years ago. And here's what I mean. So there's two distinct models of search. There's lexical, which means basically like counting the presence and distribution of words. And then there's semantic. It's like understanding meaning. So Google made a big shift around the Hummingbird era towards semantic. Now they still use both. They do like a hybrid version where they'll get results in both models, merge them together, both models, merge them together, and then like sort from there. But the SEO tool space is primarily just doing the lexical model. So pretty much every SEO tool that we use, we like take the data out and enhance it in some way so we can be doing more modern SEO. That said, I really love Botify, really love Screaming Frog. I can't go a day without using SEMrush at this point. Ahrefs I use primarily for links. Like I don't use it for all the other stuff that SEMrush does, but there's two different camps on that, right? Like there's people that love Ahrefs, people that love SEMrush. I love Ahrefs for their link data. And then beyond that, there's just been so many other things. Like the Search Atlas suite is really good. They're doing a lot of the semantic stuff in there. I don't know, I feel like I'm missing some stuff, but those are tools that I probably use every single day. And then we enhance it with tools that we build in Python and Colab. We've got our own internal SEO platform called Exact Science, which is really about like taking all this data in and enhancing it. So yeah, those are, 6-7 things that I use every day. But then there are random things that like I have a use case for that. And I just use that one thing for it and then don't use any of the other features that it has in it.
Search Atlas is the one I was going to ask specifically about. Now, I know on the enterprise large sites, I'm positive like you would need other tools, but let's take like a small, like a local business. Is Search Atlas or any other tools like that to the point where you could just use that to optimize the site and see pretty good results?
Yeah, what I love about Search Atlas is that it has a lot of the actual execution elements built into it. So it really is a very robust all-in-one. They also have like the content editor tool in it. And again, it seems like their approach makes more sense than what I'm seeing in like all these other tools on the market. And yeah, they've also got some things for like automating, link placements on like high DA sites. Like I don't know how well those links move the needle, but nevertheless, I've seen some of their case studies where they said like, yeah, we've ran it to build these 15 links and, it'll be on sites like Dropbox.com and, those sorts of things. And their case study suggested they moved the needle. So, if you're a small business, I definitely would be like, hey, let's try this sort of stuff out because it's, it's not like expensive and it's a strong all-in-one that's pulling data from a variety of different, sources that everyone would be using anyway.
And is that executing more on that semantic level then, like you were talking about, or is it?
Yeah, so specifically in their content editor tool, I think they are doing more of the semantic stuff, but I haven't seen under the hood, so I'm not exactly sure, but from what I'm seeing in how they do it versus how we do it, it seems like very similar to ours as compared to some of the other tools out there that do that.
Okay, that's cool. All right, as we get towards the end of this, I think my last question for you. I saw yesterday that you said you were going to try out your Ray-Ban Meta glasses at a concert. I'm curious how that went.
So I like them, but the problem is that if you have them on and you're making a video, you can't move. And then like I'm at a concert, like I want to like rock out, So I was like taking videos. I had them on and I was just like this. You know what I'm saying? So,
Why? Because the picture's not good if you move. You can't
right,
maintain.
because like you can't watch it. It'll be like jumping up and down because that's effectively what I'm doing. But yeah, I think it's really cool. Like I was just playing around with it in the Uber, just like looking around and being like, hey, Meta, take a picture, you know, like that sort of thing. And I had Google Glass. This is like way less intrusive looking, even though it's effectively the same thing. But yeah, I like it. It's pretty cool.
Are we all going to be wearing that in 2 years?
I hope so.
Okay.
Or something similar, because I like specifically as a performer, I hate being on stage with everybody having their phone up and like not being in the moment.
Yeah.
But if you have glasses on, you can just be in the moment, you know?
It's a good point. Never thought about that. Yeah, you go to a concert and everyone has their phone up and you're like looking around other people's phones. It's pretty annoying.
Yeah, for low quality videos that you're probably never going to watch again.
Yeah.
Like, just enjoy the show.
Yeah, so that means future concerts like Coldplay Bangkok Stadium is going to be 15,000 people stood dead still with their glasses on, not moving.
Have to,
I think the bands are all going to quit.
Turn up the lights too, right? Like, so you get a good picture.
Now, you know how like the steady cams back in the day would have the thing that like accounted for it? I'm sure they'll be able to add that. Yeah.
But it'll be on springs. Okay, well, Mike, hey, look, it's been awesome having you on. So much exciting stuff going on. I think it'd be great to get you on again in 6 months, maybe, when everything's completely different.
Yeah.
If people want to reach out to you or find you, where's the best place they can go?
Yeah, iPullRank.com. I'm at iPullRank on all the social channels. And Mike at iPullRank.com if you want to email me.
All right, thanks, Mike.
Awesome.
We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Mike.
Thanks for having me.
And that wraps up this episode of Market Movers Building Brands and Links with Linkify. Big thanks to our parent company, Linkify, the wizards behind turning ambitious businesses into standout brands. Hit up our website at linkify.io and take the first steps towards brand greatness. Big shout out to Fame for making this podcast possible. Thanks for listening, folks. Stick around for more insights in our next episode. Catch you later.